Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. As usual, today I'm going to ask you to think about something which you probably haven't thought about in a while. Are your fish getting the right nutrition? Poor nutrition is one of the most common causes of death when it comes to keeping a marine aquarium. Therefore I wanted to create a video in an effort to improve the lives of the animals in our care. When buying a new fish, it's important to consider its dietary needs before handing over your hard-earned money. Is it a carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, or just a pain in the arse? It's important that you know this so you can provide the food which is as close to its natural diet as possible. Generally speaking, frozen food is the best place to start. Apart from live food, it usually gets the best feeding response, probably because it looks a lot more familiar in terms of size and taste than flake or pellet, and it's the least likely to be overfed. Every day, my fish receive 2 cubes of mysis. Mysis is my frozen food of choice as it contains more protein, fat and fibre than brine shrimp unless it's newly hatched. Adult brine shrimp has a very poor nutritional value, therefore if this is what you're feeding at the moment, my advice is to switch over to mysis as soon as possible. It's similar in size to brine and costs the same amount, so there is literally no reason not to switch. It may take your fish a while to adjust to the new food at first, but stick with it because they'll thank you in the long run. Something else I've discovered is that scooter blennies and mandarins usually benefit from frozen lobster eggs, which can keep them fat and healthy for years. The reason these are an excellent choice for those fish is because they take into account the individual fish's feeding habits. Lobster eggs have a high nutritional value and will usually settle on the floor, where your scooter blennies and mandarins can consume them at their own pace without having to compete with other fish. I thaw all frozen food in a cup, which is then rinsed and poured through a net in an effort to introduce as little waste to the tank as possible. When it comes to dry food, it starts to get a little trickier. Most people will just pick up the first thing they see on the shelf, or buy whatever the shop recommends. There can, however, be significant variations between brands. The first thing to do is consider what you're trying to feed. Tangs, for example, will benefit from food which contains more algae in comparison to meaty ingredients. When looking at the ingredients, be sure to try to select food made of a marine origin, as this is what your fish have evolved to eat. Ingredients of a land origin, such as beef heart, should be avoided. This theory also applies to feeding live food. If you're going to feed live food to your fish, make sure you aren't feeding freshwater fish, as these can cause fatty liver disease in saltwater fish. The next thing I always look for is a breakdown of nutrition. Not all foods are created equally, and the best way to tell is with the percentage of protein. I usually try to aim for around 50% when it comes to flake and pellets. I like to feed a small quantity of each first thing in the morning on alternate days. The reason only a small amount is required is because these are far more dense than frozen food, as they've been ground up and have had all the water removed. Due to their high nutritional density, they're the easiest option to pollute your tank by overfeeding, and beginners should use these sparingly at first. I like to test new foods for how quickly they begin to disintegrate once in the water. This 5-minute test can save you an enormous amount of hassle in the long run, as the longer they stay in their original form, the better they are for water quality. Despite putting my Ecotech pump and power heads into feed mode, I still like to soak both flake and pellets for a few minutes, prior to them going into the tank. This is to prevent them from floating at the surface. It makes them easily accessible to the fish and stops them going over the overflow. I've also found that small, soft pellets are less likely to be tested and then spat out. If you're having a fish that's doing this, either soak them for a bit longer or try a softer pellet. Stepping away from traditional foods, there are 3 other types which I've used, all of which are aimed at fish which are natural grazers. Grazers are generally more active than other fish, whereas it's fine to feed a clownfish just once a day. Fish with higher energy demands should be fed small quantities multiple times to keep up with their metabolism. This can be achieved with nori, which can either be clipped to the glass or tied to a rock with a rubber band. Grazing wheels are another great choice, or a product called mastic, which can be squashed into the rock's crevices. These allow fish to naturally graze throughout the day at their own leisure. It's important that while feeding that you monitor that everyone is eating, as this is usually the first sign that something is wrong. It's also important to keep on top of your water quality. With all this food, I have to maintain a strict maintenance schedule to avoid elevated nutrient levels. For those of you that are like me and take pride in providing the optimum care for your fish, don't forget that despite claims, no single food can possibly be a complete diet, so multiple foods is always best. I hope you enjoyed watching my video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button for weekly content. Please feel free to comment below with what you feed your fish and how often, along with any questions you have. Have a good week and I'll see you next time. As always, I just want to say a massive thank you to the people that support the channel on Patreon. Never underestimate the value of what you do with regards to keeping this channel going. You've all been brilliant. Thank you.